Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the TwoSun TS64. This knife was sent to me by Mr. Anonymous. Mr. Anonymous, thank you so much for sending this. He also donated this knife to the channel. So that was really nice. Thank you very much. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thanks so much for supporting me during this time. If you'd like to check out my Patreon and get your hands on some of these stickers and some other exclusive benefits, there is, of course, a link down in the description. Your support would mean the world to me. So here's the thing, guys, with this knife. And if you don't know, most people know by now, TwoSun, what's the right angle for that? Okay. TwoSun makes incredible knives for incredible prices. They kind of have three tiers. They have the G10 and D2 tier, which is in direct competition with CJRB, who is one of the best, production knife companies in that price range. Then they have a step up, which is this. They generally use titanium in D2 for prices hovering around $70. And then they have a tier up from that, which is usually S35EN or M390 in D2, hovering around the $120 to $160 price point, I think. These knives are like some of the best priced production knives out there. This is TC4 titanium, which is the Chinese equivalent to 6AL4V. I understand not everybody likes to put their money in Chinese knives, and that's perfectly okay. You can put your money wherever you want. That's a nice thing about, the freedom of, being able to buy what you want. You just buy what you want, right? But this knife, this particular model, I don't think is available anymore. And I find that to be often the case with TwoSun knives. Is they do a model for a while, and then once they run out, they don't do it anymore, and then they do some different models. Fear not, though, because right near the top of the description, I'm going to list basically it's a TwoSun Knives search. So you can go through all of the current models that are available and pick one out that you like, if you're interested in this. They do a lot of different styles, a lot of different designs, like I said, a lot of different price ranges. I have had a lot of fun about every month going through the TwoSun Knives list, the knives that are available, and just like looking at all of the different stuff. And there's always at least one that pops out at me. So I invite you to check them out. Anyways, let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. So overall length, this is not a small knife. Coming in at 8.7 inches overall. Blade length coming in, I'm going to call that probably 3.75. I mean, down here it's close to 4. Up here it's like exactly 3.75, maybe 3.8. Cutting edge is coming in at about right about 3.5 inches, maybe 3.4 inches. There is quite a bit of a forward choil there. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. You can see that's a little bigger than the Rat 1. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue is coming in at 8 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Para 3 coming in at 7.25 inches overall. How's the action of this guy? It honestly feels like every other TwoSun I've ever felt. It's nice. It's consistent. Every TwoSun has really nice flipping action, really nicely tuned detent. They're usually not fall shut, but they really don't take much encouragement. It's running on bearings, and honestly, for the price range that this is in, which when it was available, these came in at, I think on White Mountain Knives, I saw it for like $70. That's about normal. Yeah, the action's great for a $70 knife. I felt flippers that are over $200 that feel the same that I would still call good. So the action on this is fantastic. I have no issues with the action whatsoever. It's nice and smooth. You can engage it. That little hole there, you can engage it and do the reverse flick. It's slightly uncomfortable given how it dips down. It's not quite as easy to do it this way. I would say the flipper tab is far and away the easiest means of deployment. And then as a far second, you can use that little slot right there. But you can use it, so it does have a little bit of fidget factor, and that's nice. Let's go ahead and do the hardware check. Get out my handy-dandy WIA magnetic driver and WIA bit selector, two items that are very recommendable and very inexpensive. You can find them down in the Amazon store that I reference at the beginning of every single video. Just pull open the store and choose knife maintenance near the bottom. Let's go ahead and check that pivot. I'm going to guess T8 on the pivot. Yep, T8. And actually, are we going to get lucky here? Let's see. Hey, nice. I always forget whether TwoSun uses T8 or T6. Oh, gosh. Doing this through a camera is just sometimes not. Yeah, it's definitely T8 on the body screws. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much. T8 across the board and minimal hardware on top of that. We have the pivot assembly and 2 screws on each side. It looks like the pocket screw is the second screw holding in the backspacer back here. So 4 screws and the pivot. Nice. No issues with that whatsoever. That's exactly what I want to see on a knife that's constructed like this. So that's great. Let's go ahead and talk about carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see there it is. It's a little bit thicker. Yeah, quite a bit thicker. Not crazy thick. It's not Medford thick, but it's definitely thicker. So let's put the carry profile up against the Spyderco Para 3 and PM2, 2 knives that have unquestionably awkward carry profiles that nobody ever seems to complain about. So you can see there that it is longer than the Para 3, and I think it's actually longer than the PM2 as well. In terms of height, even including the flipper tab though, yeah, the PM2 and Para 3 I think are still taller. Yeah, even at maximum height, the PM2 is still a little bit taller. Is this knife going to make sense for everybody? No. It's a big knife. It's a fairly thick knife, right? Titanium and D2, and the thickness on the blade. There's my calipers. Go ahead and measure that real quick. Blade stock thickness, I'm going to guess 150 thousandths or so. Yeah, on the money today, guys. 150 thousandths. So yeah, there's a lot of material. Long blade, fairly thick titanium scales. Weight is coming in at, not crazy, 5.26 ounces. I mean, it's definitely what I'd expect for a knife like this. It's full titanium and it's 8.75 inches overall. Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy, but definitely too big for a lot of people. So if you like to wear athletic shorts, skinny jeans, leather pants, right, tight pant material, and you're used to carrying knives like the Bug Out or Para 3 lightweight, then this isn't going to be for you. If you regularly carry a full-size knife and you wear jeans, you know, work pants, regular khakis, things like that, this might not bother you as much, right? Just it depends on what it is that you've been used to carrying. But for the size that it is, I don't think that the weight and profile are all that bad. Let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy here. So we have this sort of dark stone-washed titanium frame. Lots of interesting milling going on, some open holes here. Normally, I don't really like open holes, but they did a good job with the flow of this. They also knocked down all the edges on the inside of these areas. If they did this and it was all really sharp and uncomfortable, it would really bother me. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, can you get your finger inside those holes? Yeah, you actually can. And so if you're, you really have to dig for it, but the holes are actually big enough to get your finger into. So, don't put your fingers in there. It sounds so dumb saying it out loud. But yeah, I mean, I guess, I'm trying to think of a situation where I'm manipulating this knife where I could accidentally, I guess you're going to close it and you accidentally place your finger in there. It's possible. It's pretty unlikely. Be aware of it. I don't know if I want to call that a bad design because you really have to try to get your fingers in there. I don't think there's any natural position for your hand where you're in danger of, slicing off a portion of your finger on accident. I really don't. I mean, the natural places that I put my hands on this knife, there's nowhere that, I mean, honestly, there's more of a danger with any frame lock that you've actually got your fingers here than getting your fingers inside there. So, is it a hole you can fit your finger in accidentally? I suppose, in a pretty rare circumstance, or if you're being stupid. But I don't feel like this design is any more dangerous than any standard frame lock. So, yeah, it is what it is. Take it for what it's worth. The edges down here nicely rounded off in most places. There are a couple of sharp points right here. Maybe a little bit right here, a little bit. It's not crazy. Ergonomically, are there any hot spots? In the natural place I'm going to put my hands, unless I'm going to be holding it upside down and really interacting with that point, I don't suppose that one really it bothers me too much. The pocket clip is not sharp. It looks like it might be, but it's really not. So ergonomically, it might be something that becomes slightly uncomfortable if you're doing long, periods of cutting, right? Wear gloves if you're going to do that, in which case there's not going to be any hot spots. But no, it's comfortable. There's a nice, large forward choil here, and this area right here, this ramp, that I would have liked to see the jimping extend all the way up on. But in any case, it's very comfortable. This is a nice choke up position for the knife. I really appreciate that. one thing can be said about the ergonomics here is that there's a lot of ergonomic freedom. I do not like designs that force your hands into certain spots. I like to be able to move around. And considering how short the flipper tab is, which by the way, this flipper tab is also nicely knocked down. There's a little bit of jimping there, but it's not aggressive. The edges and everything are knocked down. So yeah, I feel like I can freely move around on this knife, and there's lots and lots of room. Even if you have really big hands, there's a ton of room, so that's nice. This little opening hole here, you guys heard me mention this earlier. This area right here is not really all that sharp, but you can really feel it given how much you have to dig your finger in. There's not a lot of room on this side. So if you want to do that reverse flick, you really have to like angle your finger just right and dig it in there. And see, that's what happened. So my fingernail got sheared off there, and it's because of the angle I'm approaching this. But you can see there, the inside's knocked down. It's not sharp. It's just that area, if it was just a little bit taller, or if this area was carved out a little bit more, it would be a little bit easier to engage. I'm not going to call that a design flaw either, because you can still engage it. And again, you have the flipper tab. So it's one of those things where if you want to pinch open it with two fingers, or you really want to do the reverse flick, you can. Given the angle you have to approach it and the detent strength, which isn't massive, but all of those things combined yield a less than perfect experience with the opening hole there. So you can use it, it's there, but it's not the optimal means of deployment. It's not really in the way of anything, right? I mean, people are, oh, it's a gunk trap. I mean, okay, then just clean it out. The entire knife is technically a gunk trap, right? Every part of the knife gunk can get in and sit on. Just clean it off. Not that big of a deal. Nothing, in that case, nothing in the cutting path. All these edges up here, nicely knocked down. Maybe this one right here above the swedge, you know, where it's a little more of a satin finish. Not crazy, a little bit, certainly not the worst. This area right here is the sharpest, for sure. But it's still not that bad. And you're not really going to be actively engaging with this part anyway. Nice thickness out to the tip, lots of room to drop down towards the cutting edge, which isn't an absolute laser beam, but it's definitely not what I'd call thick. I would say this is thinner behind the edge than most knives of this size. So you're going to gain the benefit of, you know, the blade geometry being one that can withstand a little bit of excess tip usage, right? I mean, obviously don't do anything stupid with your knife. Don't pry with it. Don't hammer with it. But it is a pretty durable tip, pretty durable spine, but there's lots of room to drop down towards the cutting edge. And so you can make use of all that cutting, you know, the usable cutting edge is plentiful is what I'm saying. And there's nothing in the cutting path. So yeah, this is going to be pleasant to use for a long period of time. The jimping up on the spine is not aggressive either. So that's nice. Very comfortable for your finger. Lots of rounding there, so lots of surface contact on that stop pin. That's great. This knife is very easy to disengage, and there's no double clutch, so that flipper tab meets your thumb in the right place, and then it's easy to sort of do that, or if you want to kick it down like this, that's fine too. Already kind of talked about the corners and things. Hardware looks nice. Lanyard holes in the right place and is not being prioritized above the pocket clip. Has a nice backspacer, a little bit of, you know, interesting design element here where it's raised, comes up a little bit above the frame and then drops back down and is flush back here, and that's nice. Everything here is just machined really, really well, and I think that's really cool. I think I would have liked to see a little bit of contrast here instead of all black, to do, you know, maybe a lighter concrete finish. That would have been nice to see, you know, if they did the pocket clip and the backspacer in a concrete finish, and then they had, like, you know, basically what I mean is like a dark stone washed or like a working finish for you Hinderer fans. And then they have the contrast with the satin hardware and the satin blade, and then further contrast with this interesting dark sort of acid wash titanium, or I guess black wash titanium frame. But whatever, it's fine the way that it is. The pocket clip isn't a deep carry pocket clip, but it's certainly not what I'd call shallow. It's in a plenty good spot. There's no issues there. There is a pocket milled out for the pocket clip, so there's one screw in there, and it does a good job of holding it in place. Pocket clip has plenty of retention, doesn't have a bill, so there's no swoop, but that's fine, and it's also not sharp. So yeah, the pocket clip does exactly what it should do. I also appreciate the lines and the flow of this knife, how it sort of curves that way. It's a really, really nice looking knife. It's not going to be for everybody, but the lines all meet up. It all makes sense. The pocket clip makes sense. I've said this before. There's nothing that makes me more mad than looking at, you know, what seems to be the intended aesthetic flow of a knife, and then you flip it over and the pocket clip is this, you know, like they just put like a cucumber on there. It's like, what? Why? You know, this pocket clip's great. No issues there whatsoever. Interesting how they milled the top of the titanium frame lock. That's cool. Just a little piece of design flair, I guess. This knife locks up at about, I don't know, 40% and is absolutely dead centered, which is what I expect from TwoSun knives. The over travel stop and steel lock bar, I'm sorry, the steel lock bar insert does act as an over travel stop, so that's great. Has all of the elements of a modern titanium frame lock. So little things to complain about. There's a couple little sharp corners here and there. Not really that big of a deal. The little hole here is a little bit difficult to engage for people who want to use it as the reverse flake. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to put it on there, then you got to make it a little bit more accessible. It's still accessible. It's not that big of a deal. Other than that, though, I mean, the only things I can complain about, or some people that can complain about, is it's a little big. You know, it's going to be a little big, a little bit heavy, but as far as like functionally for a big knife and in terms of the quality of the build, oh my gosh, yes. Once again, TwoSun knocking it out of the park. This is a really cool knife. And what's funny is just looking at this, scrolling through all of the, you know, the bajillion or the seemingly bajillions of different TwoSun knives that are out there, this is not one that my eyes would have stopped on. But just like every other TwoSun I've ever handled, it's in hand and I'm like, wow, this is really impressive for the money. This is not available. This particular model is not available anymore, but it was 70 bucks. Could I recommend it at 70 bucks? Yeah. I have actually not yet handled a TwoSun knife that I was not impressed with. So I don't know what TwoSun's availability is, if they, you know, continuously make one model, or if they stop production on a model that's not doing super well. I don't know. In any case, I mean, given that I don't know about that, and given that I don't think these command crazy high prices on the secondary market when they become unavailable, I'm still going to recommend this knife. Check out TwoSun knives. Seriously, check out that link down there that'll show the full list of what's available right now on Amazon, and check those knives out. Because, I mean, if you're looking for a really high quality titanium frame lock and you just don't want to pay, I mean, listen, I'm an American. If I have the opportunity to buy American and support my country, then I will, right? But not everybody, you know, has the same amount of money to spend on a knife, and some people want certain qualities in a knife that are just unavailable at a certain price tier that's manufactured in a certain country, right? So it's your money. Buy what you want, you know. Just don't buy clones. That's the thing. I have never seen anything from TwoSun that looks like a direct clone of anything else, right? There's always, I mean, borrowed designs, that doesn't mean a clone, right? I mean, you could say that every titanium frame lock is therefore a clone of a Chris Reeve knife, because Chris Reeve invented the Reeve integral lock, or the frame lock, which is used by like every knife out there, right? So a clone would be like if a company takes a design from another company and then tries to pass it off as that knife when it is in fact not manufactured by that company. That is a clone. Do not buy those. Do not engage in selling, trading, anything like that. As far as TwoSun goes, no, it looks like they are collaborating with specific custom knife makers, custom knife designers. I'm sorry, not custom knife designers, but knife designers, and then they are bringing these creations to life in the form of production knives that are really, really inexpensive. So check them out. This is a great knife. I'll be putting it on my most recommended knives playlist. Thank you again, Mr. Anonymous, for donating this knife to the channel and allowing me to take a look at it. This is really cool. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that metal complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.